Hello, Action Queens. My name is Dumi Mokokwe. I'll be interviewing queens who are taking action towards fulfilling their life purpose, believing that you will be encouraged and inspired on your personal journey. Our guest today is Diso Motsifane. She worked at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and later got involved in the listing of various companies and advising boards of directors on the application and listing requirements of the JSE. Today, she's the co-founder of Rose Garden Consulting, a corporate governance advisory firm, which also established Unlocking the Stock Exchange Education Initiative, through which she educates people about the basics of share trading. Hi, Diso. It's so great to finally be able to chat to you. It's been long overdue. I can't wait to get started with our chat. I hope you've been keeping well.
Hi to me. Thank you for inviting me to Action Queens. I cannot even wait for our chat as well.
How does a girl from Leboagomo, a township in Limpopo, go for a job interview at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that. So my agent essentially was mandated with doing the interview and finding the perfect person for the role, because it wasn't an upper end role. So they needed somebody who was young, was willing to work the hours, and would catch on the system as soon as now, basically. So she determined that I was able to, and she spoke to the HR there at the time, and they said, okay, bring her in, let's give it a try. And I was in, literally, just like that.
No, that's great. And how did you prepare for it? I mean, you are this young girl, and there's this big stock exchange that you are coming to. The jargon, the intimidation, I mean, all these professional looking people. How did you prepare for the interview?
So because I didn't really know what the job was going to be, I didn't have the full-on details of it, and I didn't know what it was going to look like, when I get in, and what I would be expected to do on a day-to-day basis. So I just, I got the Sunday Times, and I went to the business section, and I was reading everything about business,
I hope you're understanding what you're reading.
And I spent a few days and watching the news, that financial section of the news, the one that we always avoided when we were kids because we didn't understand the jargon. So I watched that a little bit, but it still didn't make sense. So that was literally my preparation in a nutshell. And I mean, I remember my first day when I went, there's this big book that I had called Africa. It was pretty much about politics and colonization and all of that. And I carried it the whole day in my hand because I wanted people to see how smart I was. Needless to say, I never read that book.
Lucky somebody didn't ask you, hey, tell me about it.
You know what? I was actually scared about that because I had never read it and I had absolutely no intention to read it. I had gotten it from somebody else and it was too big, those 600-page books. Because I didn't have the experience of being there and I was young, I just thought I had to show up somewhat and show that I'm so intelligent.
Clearly you were intelligent because they didn't fire you after the first week. In fact, you stayed for a couple of years.
Yes, I ended up being there for 4 years. In fact, I actually got promoted to a team leader position after 2 years.
Wow, awesome. And what is it that you saw there that inspired you to stay on in the business or the industry that you are now introduced to? What pulled your heartstrings? What attracted you to the industry now that you are being exposed to it? Because you could have said, oops, this is not for me. You turned right out of there. What made you stay?
For me, it was about the fact that it's the stock exchange one. And the stock exchange has always been associated, I could say, with elite, and it wasn't something that we as Black people saw as a career, so to speak. You know what I mean? And historically speaking, as you can imagine with the history of the country. So to be young, working at this big institution that is at the center of the country's economy and learning new things, there's different transactions, companies are getting listed, and now you're starting to understand why companies are listing, what shares are, what role they play in investments, and how people become wealthy because of it. And then I started realizing, actually, I could actually just create a career in this environment, and the kind of clientele that I was dealing with, it was just amazing at the time that there's just so much information that we previously didn't know. And now I had an opportunity to be at the center of that information by virtue of me working within this institution. So my interest started growing from there, and I just got more and more curious, so that's what made me stay there for that time.
So, because now you are working with captains of industry and you get to find out about major mergers and things like that upfront. And now with this knowledge that you are being exposed to, how did it change your life and your perception about money?
First of all, previously I knew nothing about shares. I didn't know what they were. People used to speak, regulated shares, we are getting shares in this place, at that place. I didn't understand what they were. But then I started seeing the transactions, because I used to actually register transactions when I started working at the JSE. So I started seeing the role it played in personal investments, and also on a bigger scale, with your PICs and your government pension funds and the likes and stuff. And I started getting to read a lot more about what it means to be a shareholder. Why do people buy shares? And I started then having an interest of buying shares myself, which I eventually started doing. And I saw the benefits of it. But what I realized is that because we previously didn't have that knowledge, our relationship with money and investments has always been a bit skewed, and mostly it was because we just did not have enough information to start investing, on a grand scale or even a small scale. So with us, typically our form of investment would be through a stokvel, or through, some interest account where you're getting paid a 7% interest and so forth. But I started realizing that actually with shares, you could make a lot more. There's quite a lot to benefit in there. That's why it's such a big deal. And that's why the economy is, the stock exchange is typically at the center of the economy, because there's a lot of benefit. There's also quite a lot of risk. But from a creation of personal wealth perspective, I saw the benefit in it.
So you'd say that it's a long-term game, not a get-rich-quick scheme.
I think it depends on
the...
Yeah, sorry, James. I think it depends on the type of shares that you buy, and also the type of company that you buy in. Some of the companies are quite long-term, and some companies would be short-term, because it also depends on the share price growth. Is it a 10-year period for a share price to grow? Is it a 1-year period? So you have to look at all those various factors, but also you need to understand what it means and how it all works, because a lot of us, what we do is that we read a little bit about certain information with regards to investments, and then we think, I can make money next week, but we don't have sufficient information to understand all of the different variables that are involved in that. I know companies that listed, for instance, at a rand, and the share price went to 18 rand within 10 months. And then there's other companies that listed at 10 rand and remained at 10 rand for a very long time. And then other companies listed at a high price, and then the share price went all the way to 3 cents. And you see that what's happening now with whole COVID-19, share prices have dropped drastically and stuff. So it's all about gathering knowledge. And once you start knowing, getting enough information, then you can start building the confidence in the stock exchange. Which companies do I buy shares in? And why am I buying these shares? Am I trying to be rich tomorrow, or am I wanting to create long-term wealth?
Sounds very interesting, and it sounds like something that where you constantly need to learn. It's not like I can read an article and then from then on say I know what I'm going to do. So how important is it to find advice and to partner with somebody in a professional space that can give guidance as to what to do? Because oftentimes, and also, how do you know that this person is the right one to be asking about such? What qualifications do they need to have and all of that?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question, Jim. A lot of us, we do that whole, I read a little bit, shares are this, shares are that, and then we think we know everything, and then we become very ignorant over time, and then we get scammed along the way, and then we lose hope, and we lose interest, and we become very apprehensive, because you got scammed once, and you don't want to be scammed again, right? So information about the JSE or any investment platform is critical. Literally, before you even think about buying shares, you need to be so well informed. But also, if you don't have enough confidence about your own, the extent of information that you have or knowledge that you have, then you need to find an investment manager or an asset manager. Typically, they will be registered with what was previously the Financial Services Board. I think now they call the Financial Conduct Authority, something to that effect. And if they do not have, they call it an FSP number. If they don't have that, then you cannot trust those people. And I think you can also contact the JSE and just find out which asset managers they typically deal with that would buy shares on behalf of their clients. And if you are very apprehensive about a certain person that you approached and you're not so sure, it's better that you stay away from that person, because there's obviously anybody can tell you that, you know what, I can do this for you, I'll help you to get rich quickly and stuff, but it doesn't work like that in investments.
Great. So now you are working, you are being promoted, and you have access to all this knowledge, and it's a prestigious place to be working at. Why do you now want to start a business? How does that come about? Because I mean, girl, you could be climbing, you are networking with captains of industry any day. You could get a job somewhere else,
Yeah.
So why how did the entrepreneurial bug bite?
I'm glad you asked that. I've always had it. When I was working at the JSE, I had a side business. I used to run a furniture removal business. So I got myself a bakkie, and on weekends and after work, I would be moving beds and fridges and stuff for people moving around. But I've always yearned for a certain level of control and fulfillment, which I believe that I could create it. So there was no amount of boss or working under a certain person that would bring that fulfillment, irrespective of how much I earned. And I think it's also for me that oftentimes we have all these great ideas which we think we can execute, but if you are in a work environment and it turns out that the people you report to do not see that vision that you have, it's very difficult to then work around that vision. But if I'm working for myself, for instance, I have full control of how I drive my own vision, and I think we also live in times when the job market is infiltrated at the moment, and there's lesser and lesser employers, and I would like the opportunity to be another employer.
That's great, to contribute to the nation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, awesome. So now, where do you start? You know that, okay, I want to be in business. How did you choose the line of work that you would be doing?
After I left the JSE, I worked for two big investment banks, and I then went to work for two well-known advisory firms, and doing similar work, working on listings, company listings, and advising boards of directors on the listings requirements of the JSE and various other statutory acts, so to speak. And through that, I just developed an interest in that line of work. And I would say that I became really good at what I was doing. And I saw it as an opportunity. And there were quite a few of us Black women in the space. So for me, it was an opportunity to infiltrate, to remain in the industry, and to also just fulfill the passion that I had now adopted through the work that I was doing. So I really enjoy what I'm doing, So corporate governance, compliance, JSE advisory became something that I became interested in. And it was also easy to start a company based on long-term experience that I had, because the knowledge is something that, you accrue over time, and I can still execute it. And it was just, it was easy to get into the space.
Okay. So now, what is the main purpose behind your business? What is the one thing that encouraged you to start at the time that you did as well? Because, we can always procrastinate and wait for conditions to be perfect before we start. When you took that step, what were the conditions, number one? And then what pushed you regardless?
So the first thing that pushed me is that because of I realized that there's just a lack of knowledge about the JSE. And then I was always asking myself that, how do I dispense this knowledge? How do I reach out to people and say, hey guys, this is the JSE, this is what the JSE does. These are shares, this is what shares mean, right? When you buy shares in a listed company, what does it mean in the greater scheme of things? Because people would often ask me, so is the stock exchange a bank? You know what I mean? Are you guys trading money? What's going on? You know what I mean? So then I realized there's actually quite a lack of knowledge about the JSE. So that piqued my interest to say I could actually start an education initiative going around, because I'm possibly one of the few Black people, and I suppose from the time that worked with the JSE, worked on company listings and all and so forth. So I thought I could actually share this information with a whole bunch of people. And initially I thought, you know what, I could make a lot of money out of this, giving tutorials and stuff. But over time, I just realized that it was my responsibility to do it. So then it just became a free education initiative, which we title Unlocking the Stock Exchange. So in that way, we provide the absolute basic information or education about the JSE. What is the JSE? Who runs it? Why do companies list on the JSE? What are shares? How are they created? Who creates them? What happens after I buy shares? How do I sell shares? Where do I buy them from? Who do I buy them from? Who do I sell them to? Do you see all of that information? Because we always talk about, I'm going to buy shares, but do you know where you buy them from? You know what I mean? And do you know what they are? Do you know what it means in the greater scheme of things to be a shareholder in a listed company? And after I buy my shares, how do I get information about the company? Yes, about their performance, their financial performance. When do they release their financial results? Are they supposed to release their financial results? Who are the directors of this company? How do I know about the board of directors changing? And all of that information. And I thought I could package it through a series of presentations that I hand out for free via email, via WhatsApp, and all these different communication medium, where people just get the absolute basics. Before you even think about investing, buying shares, doing this, spending your money, what is it about the JSE? What is it? So then we put together that information. So through doing that, I got inspired to actually start my company, my formal company, where I can also harness my career, Rose Garden Consulting. And I realized that it's not simple, but it's actually simple to start. You just need to get that kick, but you need to be inspired, and you need to be content with the fact that business is about service. It's about serving people. And if you embrace that and you are passionate about serving people, what happens is that the process becomes easy, because you are not trying to make money fast. You are not trying to get immediate recognition, which is what sometimes we do. We think, I'm going to get in, I'm going to have a lot of money. Like when I started with the presentations, I was like, what, the JSE will give me a venue and I will be providing this presentation. There'll be thousands of people. But I realized it's not actually about that. It's about, I am passionate about education, and I'm passionate about sharing the information, and I could be one of the few people that have the kind of information that I do. And so therefore it was a responsibility, but I ended up enjoying it. And therefore it pushed me then to get into the business.
And not only one of the people that is passionate, but one that can speak the language. And not language only in terms of Setswana, Sezulu, but language understanding background and where people are moving from in trying to understand. So therefore dialing down or adjusting the information to ensure that people understand it.
Yep, I'm glad you said that, Tim, because our motto really is that we want to break down or unlock the stock exchange such that even the man on the street understands it. Because it actually is quite simple. It's just that from the person who's outside, like any field, any industry, there's always jargon. There's always inside languages that, only they know. Right? And then what we think is that, it's so complex, it's so intimidating, I can never attain this kind of knowledge. But you find that, they will say a certain thing, but it actually means something so simple. And you're like, is it that really? But for me, it was about, if people can be interfaced with a person who was there, who can break down that information for them, it becomes a lot easier than you, for instance, going to Wikipedia, trying to read that information on your own, because the information will be packaged in such a way that you've been in the industry, you understand that already. So with us, we needed to be the people that come from the industry, but then go to the people and say that take the presentations, but then go and read up a lot more. So the information is not for you necessarily to go and buy shares. It's for you to go and build up enough knowledge such that the time you are ready, you are not going to have any issues.
You said something interesting. Start reading now, not when you already have the money burning in your pockets, when you have the pressure to spend, Get understand when you don't have money, because then you are chilled and the information can sink in. So when you've got this stack of money that you want to multiply, and therefore you are vulnerable at that stage to take on anything and anybody that might come up with a clever, big, brighter idea. So that's quite key. So never wait to start until you have the money. Start now to acquire knowledge.
You find that we get a lot of money in terms of company bonuses and some other lump sums of money that we get, and then we end up not doing much with it. It's like a guy who wins a lottery who did not previously have that kind of money, or was quite poor previously, and then suddenly he's got 5 million and he doesn't know what to do with it. I mean, you've heard those stories where people blew so much money in such a short space of time. Because it's not about just the money that I have now, and it's not about I've read these presentations, now I can go and invest, but it's about, have I absorbed this information enough? Is it meaningful to me enough for me to take the next step? Do I actually understand what I'm going to do going forward? So we encourage people, go through the presentations, read a bit more, call us, let's engage before we can get there. Let's have a 2-year, 3-year waiting period before we can actually try to do anything, because it's, you also don't want to sell a message to people, given the kind of business that we do, is that you don't want to sell a message to people that they're going to get rich tomorrow or next year. You want to let them know well in advance that it's a process. It takes a long time. Nobody ever got rich overnight. And the people that did get rich overnight because they won the lottery, we've read about them. They blew all the money away, So our message is very simple in that regard.
So it's about wealth creation, not necessarily creating riches. And it's about time that we now get to understand the meaning of the word wealth versus rich, and also about generational legacy, that you need to leave behind something for future generations, not just a funeral cover so you can bury yourself, but your grandchildren must have something to show. My grandmother was alive. I have this because, not have every generation start from scratch.
No, absolutely. And I think, I suppose with South Africa, it's a case of, we've got a history where really we only started not so long ago as a people as a whole, So, but our generation now knows a little bit more than the previous generation. We are a little bit more informed. We've got all these different technological mediums that are assisting us to accelerate the extent of our knowledge in terms of investments, finances, wealth creation, generational wealth, building all of that. So I do agree with you that it's time that we start thinking long term. It's time that we stop thinking that we can get things now. Everything takes time. Investments take time. Building finances take time. Building a house takes time, So, but also acquiring knowledge takes time as well, because you don't read on something and you know all about it. You read about it, you do more research, thorough research, but you need to almost be obsessed and be intentional about it. You need that level of obsession, and the intention that, this is what I'm going to do.
Which makes me wonder, is it for everyone? Because we say that, okay, fine, the stock exchange is one of them, a way of creating passive income where I'm not physically going to work. I'm making my money work for me, right? But now the knowledge that I need to acquire, it might be a barrier, because I don't want to lose this money. So So how do I get over this threshold? And is it like banking, where previously not everybody was a banking client, so to speak.
Yeah.
Other people kept their money in the mattress or
Yeah.
under the mattress, and then
Yeah.
now we are all banking, using the facilities.
Yeah.
And is the stock exchange something like that, where it's something that every household should have, like some sort of shares or something, and then eventually it's no longer a mystery, or this other thing that's only reserved for the elite? Is it something that's accessible to everybody and that you would think that everybody should be having or exploring?
I am so glad you asked that question, Jims. And this is one of the things that holds a lot of people back. It's the limited mindset. The mindset of I can't get X because it's for the elite or it's for this group of people. That information is literally everywhere. And this is what our presentations are about, that the information is so conspicuously available that anybody can get in. And henceforth, we keep driving the message of even the man on the street can understand. Literally, opening a share trading account is one of the simplest things you can do. You go online and you select your trading account. You can open it with an ABSA, with all of the banks, I believe. And there's a number of financial services providers that will give you a share trading account. It's an online process that literally will take you 5 minutes. But if you don't know that information, can you see how now intimidating it starts to get? Oh my God, I need to get a share trading account. What is that? It's similar to a bank account. I mean, I like the way you phrased it, that you said previously banking was only for certain people, right? And then now everybody has a bank account. Literally, share trading accounts operate the same way. If you think about a share trading account, the analogy of it would be, think about it as a bank for your shares. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So in the bank, you put money, right? The bank holds your money, and then the share trading account is where your shares are held, in essence. Does that make sense to you? And then when you want to transact, you log on the same way you'd log on to your online banking, and you do your transactions, you transfer your monies, you make payments and so forth. Similar way, you get onto your share trading account, you either buy shares, you sell shares, and it's really that simple. And that's what we are so wanting to teach people, that it's actually that simple,
Wow.
Yeah.
No, light bulb moment right there. Because there are various institutions that are offering the service, easy equities, who are trying to simplify it and make it easy. But still, for me, the information side of things, where I'm not religiously opening my phone instead of Twitter or anything else, checking the stock market and all of that, so that I can then inform myself for my decision. So it's that financial literacy or awareness where it becomes part of my daily life, and not so that I'm interested at the end of the news, right? Because if I ain't got money, go JSE invested, what business do I have watching that? So the sooner I start investing, the sooner the information will be interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you actually said that, because this is actually where we saw the opportunity of Rose Garden Consulting and the Unlocking the Stock Exchange presentations, is that we found that actually there are companies like AZ Equities. I do have a share trading account with them, by the way, that they have simplified the process, in a sense of when you open an account with them and you transact with them, it's quite an easy process. So the opportunity we saw there was before I even open this trading account, what information must I be armed with? Because it's one thing to just go and open an account, and another thing to not understand what goes into that account, right? And why is it there? Why does it exist? So then we will say to you, when we take a step back, we say that before you buy shares, you are going to open a trading account. This is what a share trading account means. And then we break it down. So when Easy Equities or any other company approaches you, hey, we can give you a share trading account, then you remember that the Unlocking the Stock Exchange presentations taught us that a share trading account is X. And this is what this is the purpose of it. And this is how I navigate around it. And then they just take it further from there. So in essence, what we are doing, we are supplementing the information that is there. You know what I mean? But we are breaking it down in much more simpler terms, so that you don't have to go through that process of being stressed and all the jargon that you are being approached with all the time.
Yes.
And you think, oh my God, this investment talk, I cannot take it anymore, So yes.
That's amazing. Catch part 2 of the interview to find out how Diso prepared her business to thrive during a recession. Remember to subscribe to our channel. Thank you if you've already subscribed. Now click on the notification button so you can be notified when a new video is uploaded.